So what is new music? There are many terms used interchangeably to describe this music, such as contemporary classical music or 21st century art music. And unfortunately, this music can often be written off as sounding like nails on a chalkboard or the sound of a kid throwing a temper tantrum on their piano, the musical equivalents of a Jackson Pollock painting or a Marcel Duchamp ready-made. But it doesn't all sound like that. And even when it does, there's still the potential for this music to be unveiling something profound and hitherto unexpressed about the times we live in and the present human condition. And thanks to a question posted by one of my patrons, today we're going to briefly explore what new music is and why it can provide you, as a listener, the ability to connect or relate with the stances and people of this extraordinary time and place in which we find ourselves. Alright, new music is technically an extension of the classical music tradition with the ancient Greeks and was built upon across the preceding centuries by composers like Just Cant, Bach, Beethoven, Mahler, Messiaen, etc. But new music also embodies the cutting edge of classical music. It's at the forefront of rigorous musical composition, or in the words of the Zeitgeist Ensemble, it's music that pushes the boundaries into new sound worlds, new influences, new techniques, new structural forms, new media, new ways of expressing and understanding the world we live in today. But this raises an important question. How far can artists push the boundaries before their art is no longer art, but something inferior? Like, in the case of music that sounds unreasonably dissonant, that it's so bad that it's just like a kid throwing a temper tantrum on the piano, why have so many artists embraced such a difficult, perhaps even impossible to understand aesthetic? That's because it's a new language. You see, new music is one of the primary manifestations of creativity in the current generation. And although on the surface it may seem like nothing we've ever heard before, but lurking beneath the surface are the timeless feelings and ideas we've come to recognize in all great works of art. Unrequited love, profound joy and adulation, questions of purpose and destiny, a need for human connection. All of these things can be found in new music. Now, I think the writings of Arnold Schoenberg in the early 1900s provide several good analogies for helping us understand why new music is so difficult to understand, but also why it shouldn't be ignored for that reason. Around this time, Schoenberg always liked to distinguish between what he called style and idea. Style and idea. In his view, styles change, but ideas or principles will stand the test of time. Think of a common idea we're all familiar with. It's a common story idea. That of the hero stumbling into a brave new world. At first, he is transfixed by the splendor and glamour of this new world, but slowly things start to become more sinister the more they learn. This is the underlying idea of Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, Gulliver's Travels, and on and on and on. All wildly imaginatively different in style, yet their meaning, or the idea underlying, always remains the same. And just as the protagonists of these stories had extraordinary difficulty grasping the strangeness of these new worlds, so we will struggle with the newness of new music. Schoenberg puts it this way. This is a good analogy, I think. Let us assume that I had the chance of talking to someone who lived 100 years ago. Okay, so if Schoenberg hopped in a time machine and went back to the year 1830, and I were to say to him, "The weather is bad, so we shall need transport to get to the theater," this would be clear straight away to anyone of the kind. But if I were to say to that man, In weather like this, we can't go on the bus because we should be wet through even getting from the bus stop to the theater. By now, a man who knows nothing of buses and bus stops will be taken out of his depth. And as for my saying, in weather like this, we must have a taxi, we must take a taxi, but we must set out earlier than usual because the driver will have to drive slowly. Certainly a man in 1830 would have no idea what Schoenberg is talking about if he were to use this kind of language. Now, something about us as humans, there's something inside us that yields for this kind of, yearns for this kind of novelty. And the way the new often stretches us might be one of nature's ways for helping us grow. Oftentimes being stretched is uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean we should just give up at trying to understand the composer or the music's meaning. For the experience of encountering what's happening in the world today through the new music can only aid us in confronting this strange, wonderful, yet terrifying world of the 21st century. Soon I'll post another video with some examples of new music, and we'll explore that concept further. But in the meantime, I'm Edwin Culver, and I'm going to be here to guide you through the world of new music. Because you see, all music was new music at some time. And so if you want an eye-opening experience with classical music and new music, you can find out more by checking out my Patreon page, where I not only share the new music that I've composed myself, but provide exclusive content that unlocks the meaning and the beauty behind the music of the past, when it was new music. You can watch the introduction video here to get started on your journey to being captivated by the profound meaning behind music of the past and of today. And to my current patrons, I must thank you for providing others with the opportunity to share in and enjoy this project. I'll see you for more questions in the Patreon feed. Cheers, guys.